Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Bava Metzia daf Lamed Gimel. We're going to begin the very bottom last two words on Lamed Beis Amud Beis Tashma. Come in here as we continue Lamed Gimel Madalf. We've been discussing whether or not, when it comes to Tsar Bali Chayim, causing anguish and pain to an animal, is that a din deraisa or is it din derabbanan? So now the Gemara quotes the pasuk Reivetz that the animal is laying down. V'rav son, says Rashi, haragel b'kach. Not that it's accustomed to typically be doing this. Reivetz, that it's laying down. V'oimei, not standing still. Tachas masai. Again, this is referring to it has this bundle on it. So v'lo mafoidik. So it's not referring to as says Rashi v'hu tzarach te'ina. Now it needs to be loaded. Tachas maso shechalamud boy. It's something in which you're able to shechalamud boy could withstand. What's the difference, right? If it's still causing pain, so what's the difference if it's normally lying down or it's sometimes lying down, if it's standing still? It shouldn't make any difference. Sar Bali Chaim should make it automatic that you should take care of it. So Hamani Rabbi Yosef Guli Hidiyemrit Sar Bali Chaim D'Rabbanan. You're right. According to this brisa, this has to be that Sar Bali Chaim is D'Rabbanan. So Hachanam Estabra. This is logical. So man shaman lay the Israel high svar. Who's one who holds like this? Rabbi Yosef Guli, as we saw previously. Shmamina. So 1 second. Now we're saying this is like Rabbi Yosef Galili. Is that so pasha? It's only tachas maso. It's underneath this bundle. However, not that now it needs to be loaded. So my loma faidik, ilema loma for klal, that it doesn't need to be loaded at all. Haksiv hakim takimimo. We know there is a mitzvah of loading an animal. So what does that mean? What's the difference? There's still a chiyuv. Okay, fine. There's a chiyuv of unloading, but there's also a chiyuv of hakim takim. It just means that you don't have to do it for free, but you'll be compensated. So the Rabbanan are the ones who mention this notion that you'll be compensated. When it comes to the din of te'ina, so then the din is that he actually does hold like the Rabbanan, that a person would be compensated. Okay, so Savak Rabbanan. The pasuk says kisira. So what do we learn out from that? So yachol afil marachik, even if you see from very far away. Talmud learn kisifka, you encounter, which sounds close. So kisifka yachol pegia mamish, they have to actually encounter. Talmud learn kisira. So ve'ezu ri'ah sheish. What's close enough that there's some form of encounter? Shiur Chachamim echad misheva umechsa b'mil. So this is the Chachamim say 1 from 7 echad misheva umechsa b'mil. 1 and from 7.5 mil. Zehu ris. So this is the measurement called a ris. Tana umidadeh imo ad parsa. And says Rashi, so let's say you helped them up, but then all of a sudden they may fall again. So then you should therefore continue to go with him until a parsa to make sure you're not needed again. However, since again you're doing all this extra work, so there you are paid. Let's see the next Mishnah. Says the Masnisen. So you have this dilemma. You have your own object that you can claim and get because it was lost, or you can get your father's. So avidaso kodemes. So yours comes first. Put your seatbelt on first. Avidaso avidas rabbi shlo kaidim. Even against your Rabbi, yours comes first. Now, how about you, your father, and your Rabbi? So we have the famous line that Avidas aviv avidas rabbi shel rabbi kodemes. You have to take care of your Rebbe first. Your father brought you into this world, Baruch Hashem, but nonetheless, Rabbi Shlimdu Chachma, your Rebbe who's teaching you wisdom, Yavilu Chaylam Haba. So it doesn't say Torah, it says taught you Chachma. So it's interesting ha'ara. V'im aviv chacham shel aviv kodemas. However, let's say your father's a chacham, which basically means your father's also a rav, your Rabbi, so therefore he comes first. Ha'aviv v'rabo noisin masai. Let's say you have your father and your Rabbi, they're carrying a package. Meniachas shel rabo, so you should help your teacher. V'yachach meniachas shel aviv, then your father. Ha'aviv v'rabo v'es hashevi. Let's say your father and your Rebbe are in captivity. So poides Rab Yachach poides Aviv. It's unbelievable. You actually have to redeem your Rebbe before your own father. V'im Aviv Chacham poides Aviv Yachach poides Rab. Again, the same thing when it comes to an Aveda, so too when it comes to Pedia, Pedin Shvuyin. If your father's a Chacham, so then you take care of him first. Which again, it shows the unbelievable level of respect a person needs to show to their teachers. So minahanimili. So how do we know that you come first? So Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav, Amar Kra, Efes Kiloyim B'cha Evyoin. There shouldn't be anyone poor. Shalcha Kaidim, L'Shel Kol Adam. So there is a mitzvah of helping and giving tzedakah, but there's also a warning, Hizar min ha'aniyos, that you're not allowed to become poor. You're not allowed to do things that can impoverish yourself. So therefore, you have to take care of yourself to make sure that you are going to be sustained. Very interesting insight that anyone who all they do is take care of themselves, you end up becoming poor. Since you are so busy only taking care of yourself and not giving tzedakah to others, you'll end up needing tzedakah yourself. Says Rashi, you still should go above and beyond. You shouldn't be so, oh yeah, I should come first, because unless it's a very clear loss, you're going to be losing tons of money. If you're constantly particular, if you end up not giving tzedakah, you'll end up needing to get tzedakah, which is again the mindset, as this Gemara is mentioned very often, aser taser, aser b'shvil sh'tisasher. So by you giving tzedakah, you become rich. Why? Because if you have money, so you may not be very carefree you may be very carefree with it. However, if you take some of the money, which is so precious to you, as we saw, Adam is mamashmish b'chisa b'chol shah. So because of that, since you're so careful, so that it's possible that once you start giving tzedakah, which is so hard, you recognize the value of money, and therefore the money that you still have will you'll be more careful with. Rabbi Sha'amru, when we said that you have to take care of your teacher, Rabbi Shalim d'Chachma, it's referring to your teacher who taught you wisdom. Says Rashi, as far as Tami Mishnah, which is Gemara. V'loi Rabbi Shalim do Mikro Mishnah de Rameir. So it's like someone who actually he taught you Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Kol Shroiv Chachmas Hoimenu. It just we go Basaroiv. What is the majority of wisdom? So if it was Chumash or Mishnah or Gemara, whatever it is, whatever is your most knowledge you've acquired. So even if, let's say, you don't learn much Gemara, you don't learn much Mishnah, so you have immersed yourself in Tanakh by your Rebbe, so then that's like your Rav Movhak. Rabbi Yossi Amar is an unbelievable line. If you hear your Einav Elba Mishnah Achas Zuhu Rabbi. Sees your Rebbe, even if all he did was teach you one Mishnah. But it's interesting, it doesn't just say that. It says the language of enlightening the eyes. So Rashi just says Shahidiyah Tam Mishnah Achas Shel Yachal Haven. He basically explains something that you didn't understand, and then all of a sudden, like a light bulb goes off. But this is an amazing language, I think, because teachers are not just supposed to be teaching wisdom, but you're supposed to enlighten their eyes, open up their eyes to something that they haven't seen before. So it's not just the material, but you also have to be someone who knows how to deliver the material to make it engaging and interesting, to enlighten up their eyes. Omer Rabba, Kagain Rav Suchaira the Atzparan Zuhama Listerein, says Rashi. So let's say, for example, you have Beseder Taharis. It says regarding taking off the froth off of a spoon, So it's Masechtas Kalim, V'lohi Siyadea Ma Klihu. I don't know what Kli was. V'lamteinishu Kaf Gedoyla, and it's referring to like a large spoon. So when you're taking the froth off of a spoon, I didn't know what this language was, and then he explained to me it's referring to a kaf gedoyel. So even that, even it's not the whole Mishnah, but it's just part of it. Shmuel karamani, Shmuel rended his garment. Says Rashi, kera she'ein misakla kedin talmud al rav. Fine. Shmuel karamani. Alei Hahu Merabanan the Aspre Echad Yard L'Amas Hashechi. So he would anyone who would explain this one thing, which again is whatever, it's something which he didn't know, that someone who goes down to L'Amas Hashechi, which is a location, it's like an opening doors to the Heichal, the Echad Poseach, and the other one openings Kivan Omer Ula Tamil Chacham Shebababa Oimdim Zeb Mibnei V'Karin Zel Zeh that in the Veda Mamakam Aviv Enu Chayzun Elo Rabba Muvhak. So let's before we go ahead of this. So what is Amas HaShechi? So it's brought down Masechtas Talmud. Eitzel HaNechnasim Shachars, those who go in the morning with Toach the Lasois HaHeichel, to enter in the base of Mikdash the doors. Misha Zacha B'Dishin Mizbeach HaPnimi, the one who was involved in the cleaning of the inner Mizbeach where the Kataris was brought. It was Sheni Maftachois Biyad. He had two keys. Echad Yared L'Amas HaShechi. One of them, he needed to put his hand to the inside, and the door ended up like touching his armpit. That's the idea why it's called Amas HaShechi. Anyway, that's the idea of some element of a Mishnah which you didn't know before, and it's a lengthy Rashi, and that's it. Once it's explained, that's good enough. So he said, Poisech Kivandi Amas HaShechi ve'echad Poisech, etc. Kivandi Arba Ula Tamil Chachamim Shebabava Aimdim Zeh Zemenei V'Karin Zel, is that they stand for one another, they rip their garment for one another. So because of that, like all Talmid Chachamim should respect one another. So therefore, it's not just enough that you have some Rebbe, because you show respect to all educators and all teachers and all of your Rebbeim, all the people that you've learned from. But when it comes to this, when it comes to an Aveda, it's specific to one person, the person who is your Rav Muvhak. What if you have a situation of a student, says Rashi, that the Talmud heard information from other people. So what is the din? Does he come before your father regarding an Aveda? So therefore, what is this talking about? So basically, you have a person who is not necessarily a Rebbe, but you heard information from this person, so you learned something from him. So maybe is that enough that you should his Aveda should come first? We don't need you. You need us. You need me. I don't need you. You need me. For 40 years, Ikbedei Hadadi, they were makbid with one another, that they said this, Ayil Gabe Hadadi, and they didn't end up going up toward one another because of this interesting statement that was said. Okay. Yosef Rav Chisda, Arboyin Tani Yasa, 4 fasts, Mishum Decholish Daite Durav Huna, because he felt very bad that he made him feel bad, so therefore he fasted, or Arboyin Tanise, 4 fasts. Yosef Rav Huna Arboyin Tanisa Mishum Dechashte Rav Chisda. Actually, it's because he was chayshish that with regard to Rav Chisda, that he didn't know the answer. Itmar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef Rav Yochanan Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. Halacha Taka is like the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, which which we just saw somewhere. Rabbi Yosef, I feel this. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol Shroiv Chachmas Temenu. So as long as you learn Rav Chachma, so then when it comes to Aveda, you have to listen to them first. Rav Acha bar Rav Huna Omer Rav Sheshan lo halacha Rav Yosi, which usually halachas like Rav Yosi, that even if it's just Mishnah Achas, that is enough. Rav Yochanan Hachav Yom Rav Yochanan Hachav Stam Mishnah. So he usually holds like a Stam Mishnah. Tanan Rabba Shilmdu Chachma. So it says a Rebbe who teaches Chachma. So my Chachma Roiv Chachma. So it means the majority. Tanaban Ha'iskim b'Mikra Mida ve'enu Mida. Someone who's involved in Chumash. So it's Mida. It says Hiksas. It's good a little bit. Ve'enu Mida. Mishnah and Gemara Yafin Mimena. Even though it's good, you're learning Chumash, but Mishnah and Gemara is better. In those days, as Rashi says, there was no Torah there was no Torah of Gemara like we have here, that it's all written down. How nice it is that we're able to learn, Baruch Hashem. Because otherwise, how would we be able to learn it? It would have to be mamish the way it was initially, Torah Sheba'al Peh, that it was taught from teacher to student. And that's the reality. So it used to be that there was not so much Gemara being taught and learned. And therefore, Mikra, which is Torah Shebechsav, okay, Baruch Hashem, you can open up a Chumash, you can hopefully learn it. But therefore, it's Mida Ve'enu Mida. But Mishnah, Mida V'Noitel Noy HaSachar. However, when it comes to Mishnah, it is good, and you'll receive Sachar. But Gemara, Ein Locha Mida Gadol Mazu. When it comes to Gemara, it's the highest. Because Gemara, unlike Mishnah, sometimes the Mishnah is cryptic, and it's not so clear what it means. And therefore, the Gemara comes and explains certain things that we would maybe not be able to simply deduce and understand. So Gemara is the number one. Don't ever argue with it. Well, let's argue with it. You should run toward Mishnah more than Gemara. What? Hagufa kasha. First you said that the Gemara is the greatest. Then it says learn Mishnah not before you learn Gemara, or run to learn Mishnah not before you run to learn Gemara. So which one is it? Should you learn Mishnah? Should you learn Gemara? So Rabbi Yochanan continued to Lamed Gimel Mebeis, Bimei Rebbe, in the days of Rebbe Nishnish Misnazu. This is what this Mishnah was learned. So what happened? Says Rashi, Hadik Tani Gedoyla Gemara Ein Locha Mida Gadol Mazu. The Gemara is the top. Lafi Shemisharabu Talmidi Shama v'Hillel. Since there was so many of these students, showing the fun of Sholosh Dairis, for 3 generations, Rabbi Machlokes B'Tayra, there was Machlokes, Venasas Kashtei Tayris Chas V'Shalom. They looked like 2 Torahs, skipping line. Mitach Kach Lo HaYuchayin Lases Leiv Lavar Divrei HaChalukim Ad Yomav Shel Rebbe, until Rebbe came. Shanasan Kadosh Baruch Hu Lochein Be'enei Antoninus Melech Raimi. And in the time of Antoninus, the king of Rome, so he had a close relationship with, Rebbe and Antoninus had a very close relationship, as the Gemara elsewhere discusses. The ad yamav, and until those days, the Gemaras were not so clear. Elokol Talmud sheshama davar mepi gadol himenu garsa. Anyone who heard Torah from someone greater, he learned it. But nasa simanim, and he made some mnemonics and different ways to remember. Halacha plainis uplainis. The halacha is like this and this, skipping like 8 lines. Lefikach. Amr b'Gemara enocha mida gadol mazu sheyitnu leiv latamiya Mishnah. Basically, he wanted people to focus on Gemara. So therefore, at that time, when there was not so much Gemara learning, so therefore, says Rashi, back in the Gemara, Shavkukoli Alma Masnisin, people stopped learning, V'ozu Basu Gemara, and then they started learning Gemara. Because of the statement, they said there's nothing greater than Gemara. So everyone's like, okay, but I don't want to learn Gemara. The problem is, Hadar Darish have a Ratzal Mishnah used to be the Gemara. So because people were not learning the Mishnah, so because of that, he decided to say that Mishnah is great. So my Darish. So what was this whole drush that he was able to come up with this? Kid Darish Rabbi Huda, but Rabbi Eloi. Might say, what does it mean when the pasuk says Haged La'ami Pisham, to speak to the nation of sinners, Ulebeis Yaakov Chataisam, and the children of the house of Yaakov their sins. So Haged La'ami Pisham El Tanam Chachamim. These are referring to scholars. Shishkagais Nasas Lahem Kizdainis, that their shaygegs that they learn, again, this is to learn out that Gemara is greater, then Rashi says, La'ami Pisham. So what is La'ami Pisham? It says Am. Ami is the Hainu Talmud Chacham. So it's referring to a Talmud Chacham because it's like part of my nation. So the problem is, says Rashi, Pesha Shahayilahem Loses Le Batami Mishnasam Shivalahem Al Iker. They should have delved into learning a Gemara. Levesh Yaakov Chataisam, as it's Rashi says, V'li or Halacha Mitach Mishnah Shenu Iker. They're like bemazed as they should have learned Gemara, because you cannot learn halacha based on just learning Mishnah. You need the Gemara to be able to explain things, to be able to get to the psak. So therefore, it was like amazed that they should have learned Gemara and they didn't. So those people, they're that which they do amazed. It's like it's b'shoigeg, because they are amharatzim and they don't know anything. Behind who did not know Yehuda Omer Havizar b'Talmud. You should learn Gemara sheshkagas Talmud by learning olazadain. So therefore, again, because Talmud Chacham, they need to learn, because otherwise it's considered to be like b'mezid. Derash Yehuda bar Eloi. What does the pasuk say? Shema devar Hashem. Hashem, listen the word of Hashem. Hacharedim el devaro. Those who tremble to his words. El Talmud Chachamim. So these are the Talmud Chachamim who tremble at their words. Amru achechem elu bali mikra. They learn chumash. Senechem elu bali mishnah. Minadechem elami aretz. Sheshemer timer psak sivrim batel sichtom. So you would think, look at Rashi, why is it that senechem is mishnah? Shesainim bali gemara. They like hate those who learn Gemara. Lafisha bali gemara Armrim al Bali Mishnah, because they'll say regarding the people who are in Mishnah, Shein Mivali Oilam, they're all mixed up, as it's brought down in Masechtas Sota, Ha Tanoim Mivali Oilam, Shemorim Halachim Itaych Mishnasam. People who make a psak based on just learning a Mishnah, that's incorrect. Minadechem or Amaharatzim, says Rashi, Shtam Chacham, Senuim Sa'avim Lehen Kanida. So you would maybe again think that their logic is gone. Talmud Leimer v'nira, we will see b'simchaschem, in their rejoicing. So it's eventually things will turn around. Shema timer Yisrael Yavoishu, the Yisrael will be embarrassed. Talmud Leimer v'hem Yavoishu, they'll be embarrassed. Chachamim Yavoishu Yisrael Yismochu. Chachamim eventually will be embarrassed. Chachamim will be embarrassed. Israel will rejoice. Okay, let's look at a couple questions. We will continue, but let's at least see, hopefully, a question. Al mi amr b'gemara kol mekayim ba'atzmai kach seipo lekach. So he said that someone who is medaktek b'shura sadin shishaloi koidim, I'm only going to take care of myself before everyone else. Uparkum il of oil gmos chasam tzedakah, they'll end up not giving charity. Eventually, they're going to need to come onto people to survive. Okay. Question TA 20, not yet, and TB 20, also nothing yet. We'll get to that now in the next parak. Hadnulach il Metzias, Hadnulach il Metzias, Hadnulach il Metzias. Oh, second parak is so geschmack. Hamafkid isn't so hard either, but we have a couple, fourth and fifth prakim are coming up. Hamafkid eitzel chaveiroi. So if you gave a safekeeping to your friend to watch, for example, behemo kalim, the nigdavo sha'avdu, and they either got lost or stolen. So it depends. So in Rashi says like this: Shvua shaimrim shul pashaba. So there's a shvua that is supposed to be made by the shaimer that he was not negligent. Another shvua shlosh bayad, that he had no hand in this. There's actually going to be a third shvua, but those are the two Rashi brings down. Now shilim v'ratzul shava. Let's say he says, you know what, I want to pay. I don't want to make this shvua. even though the truth is he is able to apparently make a shvuah and get out of it. We're going to see which shomer we're talking about in the Gemara. But in the meanwhile, this person would technically be pater from Geneva and Aveda, and therefore he could just make a shvuah saying that he had no part of it, and therefore he'd be off. But instead, he didn't want to do that. He decided to pay the owner of the pikadon, the Baal pikadon, and he didn't want to make a shvuah. Shari Omer Shamachinam, so that's the answer right there. Nishma v'yoytze. So technically, a Shamachinam who's part of Geneva Aveda can make a shvuah, and that's it. Nimsa Gad Misham Tashum Kefil Tavach Marcham Misham Tashum Abba Chamisha, as we know in Parak Maruba, elsewhere in Bava Kama, that there's a chiyuv of kefel for a ganav, as well as if he was Tavach Machar, he shechted or sold the animal, he had to pay 4 or 5, whether it's a shor or a seh. So the question is, who gets that money? It's the one who the bikadon is by him, because the fact that he went out of his way, he went lefnimishus, if you will, and he said, I'm not going to make a shvuah, I'm just going to pay you, so therefore he accepts, if this ganav is found, this extra money. What happens the other way around? Nishmal Rasul Shalom. Let's say he makes a shvuah but doesn't want to pay. And of course, the Gemara ends up, as we saw before, what if he's nishma and mishalim? Okay, that's a machlokas. But nishma v'loy ratzal mishalim nimsa gana mishalim tashum kefil. Tavach hamakam mishalim tashum b'chamishil mi mishalim b'al pikadon. So the Baal pikadon is the one because the guy made a shvuah, so he was matriach the base and everything. So therefore, that's the din. Okay, fact the Gemara. Lomali misni behema v'lomali misni be'kelim. Why do you mention 2 of these things? Just mention a pikadon. You know, why do you have to be specific? If it only mentioned the case of an animal, havamina behemahu demakne lake feila mishum de nafesh tircha lafuka, because this guy's taking care of an animal. An animal's not easy to watch, so he has to bring it in, bring it out. He has to walk the dog, right, back and forth, feed it. So it's because of that. Maybe that's why we'll say that he could potentially the lamisha hipikadon etzlo should be able to potentially get the kefil and dal the hay. Of a kalim do nafesh tirchayu emalo machne like kefil. Maybe he won't get the kefil because it's really not such a big deal to just have a kli sitting in your house. V'yitan a kalim have, I mean a kalim who the kamakane like fail, maybe only by a kli it should work. Mishum do nafesh keflaihu. So again, when it comes to kli, the most is kefil, so the guy can get double, which is that's great. But when it comes to a behema, this guy can end up getting 5 times the amount. So you know what? I don't want you to pay, right? Because there's a chance I'm going to find this ganav and I'm going to get 5 times back. So maybe in that situation, it will not go to the person who is watching the pikadon sricha. So that's just question 14. Lamla misne behema bekalim. Again, behema because you have to. There's a lot of tircha. Kalim because it's not nafesh kaflahu. Okay, sricha. Let's continue. Maskav la ramabarcham. So they ask another kasha. We know the din that you can't be machna something which isn't in this world. So how can we say that he'll be able to, in the future, be able to collect the kefil and the dal of the hay in the event that the ganav is found? That's a devar shel v'om. The afil Rabbi Meir. Now Rabbi Meir is lenient, as Rashi quotes the Gemara in Kedushin, that if a person is hired mekadeshusly on condition that I convert, that you convert, so according to him, it's actually a machlokas that he holds that Yutaka could do it. Now, why? So only Rabbi Meir can go in Paris dekel, like fruits on a tree. Yavidid asu. We know that they're going to grow. You have an apple every single year. These fruits grow. So there's no fruit on the tree, but you know in a month or 2 the fruit's going to grow. So according to Rabbi Meir, you could be machna devashol ba'olam, something which you know is going to end up happening. Why? Because it's the avidi the asu. Of al as we continue the lamadam aleph, mi yemer de migdava. Who says the guy's going to end up? It was stolen, says Rashi. She asid lihiganev. How do you know in the future it's going to be stolen? The likni le kefil the mashas mesira, that you should be able to be koine it the kefil from the time it was given over. The al karchach mashas mesira boy lachnuye. shemashka mimenu al manaskach. So it's an interesting point. It has to be, it's a very important Rashi, that the time in which the kinyan of being the ability to potentially collect the kefel is only because it was b'shas mesira, right? So b'shas mesira, when you gave it over to the guy to watch, who said it was going to be stolen? Back in the Gemara, the imtim leimer demignava. Even if it would get stolen, miyimer demishdakach ganav. Who says you're going to find the ganav? The mishdakach ganav. Mi yemer dimishalim. Maybe he won't have to pay anyway. The kefil. Dilma maidim mifter. We know that kefil is a kanas, and maidim kanas potter. So therefore, even Rameir would hold you can't do this. So why do we say this works? So Amarava Nasik Aimerlo. The reason why it works, it's Nasik, like at the time of the Masira, that when you gave it over, it was Ke'ilu, like you said, that Likashit Tiganav, that when if it gets stolen, Vetirtza, and you wish, Uteshalameni, you can pay me, Hari Parasi Kanuyalach Lacham Yakshav. So it's like it's Ma'achshav. Right now, it works. So this is what's referring to. As Rashi says, the Kimur Rabbanan Denich Labalam Shibatuach Bekaren. The owner, he's giving up his pikadon to watch, for someone to watch it. He wants his pikadon back. He wants his Karen back. So therefore, it makes sense that he would be okay with this. At the time, it's like he's saying that if you wish, that you could pay me back the Karen, which is what I really want, and then you could be able to get the kefil. So Maskarav Zera Ihach, if that's true, Afil Gizoy Seha Volado Seha Nami. Why don't we say, says Rashi, the Nimsa Shahaisa Shalom Mishari Shaina, since he now has it, it's like it's his, so Yiskaf Begizoy Suvladais. So he should be able to also acquire any of the shearings, this person who's watching this pikadon, as well as if it gives birth. Shayla Mishabal of Esai, once it comes to his house. The Nignav, Vishilim, Nimsa Shalom Afreya. It was always his Mafreya. So if that's the case, so then why do we say the only thing that he gets to keep is only the kefel? That's what the Gemara says. Why would you make an exception? So it's as though the owner of the Bikadon says, yes, if you wish and you pay me back the money, the Karen, if it gets stolen, you'll be able to get the kefil, but I never want to give you the shearings or its offspring. So my pascha, why would the owner make such a distinction? So when it comes to some improvements coming from the world of an Inish Damachni, he's going to say, who knows, again, that kefil is ever going to come. So I don't know if it's going to come. So fine, you could keep the kefil. However, when it comes to the improvements of the body of the animal itself, either by giving birth or its shearings, a person would not do that. So not all the way before, but only samach so right before it gets stolen, then it will be acquired to you. So my benayu kushid Rabbi Zera. You can ask the kasha of Rav Zera, because there's no longer a kasha of Rav Zera, because you only acquire it the second before it gets stolen. Therefore, you cannot acquire the shearings and the vlad. So inami the kaim of agam, says Rashi, kishin ganva ganim. When the guy stole it, it was not in your rishus. It was not by you. So lilish nabasro lo kani kveil. According to the last lashon, you're not kain it. In order for it to be a kinyan chatzer, it has to be in your rishus. And therefore, since it was stolen by Agam, so therefore, Samach and Gnevasa wasn't by in your chatzer, so therefore you couldn't be koined. Mashin kain, if it happened to Mafreya, so then we say that it would be koina, even though it was in the Agam. Okay, we're going to stop there. Went pretty deep. Let's look at TA20. Okay, this is on the Lamed Dalet on Aleph. So Shil Baratzal Shalim Kefil Menes Nasikaimer Lo Sheknigdim Hari Parasi Kunilach. So Madua Eno Machne Loy Gam Es Hagizais Vlado Sasha Hayula Mishash Ba Rishusai. Two answers. So why do we not say also that he should be able to be koine the Gizai Sehon of Vlado Seha, which we say He's not. So the one answer is it's Nasikaimer lo chutz migizo sel vodoseha. He's probably going to exclude that. And the reason why is because the stam de milsa, that shvacha de megufa, lo ovid inish de machne. He's not going to let him be koina the shvach that comes from the body of the animal itself. That's answer number one. The second answer is that it's nasa kaimer lo shekitgane v'tirtza tashlim samuch l'gnei vasa kanoi l'cha. So therefore, because it's samuch l'gnei vasa, so therefore it's not going to be shayach that you were able to acquire these things, because you weren't able to acquire until the second, basically the moment before it was stolen. All right, let's see what TA20 says. O mishum deshvachin megufo lo machne, o de machne lo hakefo rak samuch l'gnei vasa. Okay, TB20. Sharmer sheshila v'ratzal shava matitz b'gemara al kach she'en hagzis v'lados kanum l'shmor l'shaymer mafreya kamo kefel. So same question basically. So let's see that I wrote for TB20. Habal oimer rak haguf v'lo hagizais v'vlados. That's not rak hakefel, right? You can only keep. It should say rak hakefel v'lo hagizais v'ladoseha she'oisim memeil she'oisim megufo. O kamoshahu oimer, o kamoshahu oimer, shahu kaina rak samach nevasa, and have committed him agam. Okay, so again, it's maybe I made a mistake with a couple of words, but again, either it's samach nevasa, or the first answer is that he says I only wanted to be, you could only be kind of potentially the kefel, but not because that comes mamela, and not when it comes to the which comes megufay adkan.